I wasn't supposed to be the hero of the company, just a quiet financial analyst, head down, doing the work no one noticed until it mattered, when the market nosedived and panic hit the top floors. I built a model that saved us. Overnight, it became the foundation of a pivot that turned projected losses into a multi-million-dollar rebound. I worked weekends, skipped sleep, ran the numbers again and again until it was bulletproof. But when the board met for the emergency strategy session, it wasn't my name on the slide deck. It was Grant's. My boss. He walked in like he'd slayed a dragon and laid it at their feet. He called it a team effort. But the only name that kept echoing to the conference room was his. Tasha smiled at him the whole time. That smile she used to give me after late nights in my apartment, when we whispered about getting out of that company together. She stood by his side, nodded along to every point he made, eyes locked on him like she was watching a god perform. And I sat there, just beyond the glass wall, watching everything I'd done become a stepping stone. I didn't say anything. Not yet. It wasn't just humiliation. It was confusion. Tasha and I had been close. Not exactly official, but real, or so I thought. But when she turned her back on me in that meeting, I realized how wrong I was. Later that evening, I stayed in the office after everyone left. I pulled up the original files. Every version of the model, every late-night note, every projection. I knew I had created it, but something felt off. My folder on the shared drive looked smaller, thinner. I checked the logs. Last access. Grant's ID. 2 days before the meeting. That wasn't a mistake. I backed up every file to a private drive. Not just a model, but the Slack messages with Tasha, our meeting notes, everything. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet. I just knew I couldn't let it go. The next morning, Grant dropped by my desk, all smiles and false camaraderie. "Great work on the groundwork," he said. "Couldn't have done it without your spreadsheets." Spreadsheets. He didn't know the model wasn't just math. It was insight, behavior-driven projections, risk-tier algorithms. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a revolution. And he had no idea how much of it I still had access to, or what else I knew. I watched him walk away, swaggering back to his corner office like a king returning from war. And I looked over at Tasha's desk, empty that morning, her coffee cup still warm. I didn't know who she was anymore, but I was starting to figure out who I needed to become. That night, I went home and opened a folder I hadn't touched in months. Inside were photos, texts, call logs, things you keep when you love someone and can't admit it's falling apart. And there, between her screenshots and my saved messages, was a note she once wrote. "If they only knew how smart you are, one day you'll run this place." I closed the folder. She was right. But first, I had to burn it all down. Tasha wasn't just with me. I found that out the hard way, and once the veil lifted, everything looked different. I was still piecing things together when Riley, the HR manager, casually mentioned over coffee that he'd seen Grant and Tasha leaving a hotel together the night before the board meeting. I laughed like it didn't sting, like I wasn't falling apart inside. Riley raised an eyebrow, paused, and said, "You didn't know, did you?" I didn't answer, but it was all I needed. That night, I dug deeper. Not into company files this time, into people. I started with Tasha's social patterns. She wasn't subtle, just calculated. Grant wasn't her only interest. There was Brent, too, one of the board members. I'd seen them together once at a gala, but I didn't think much of it. Now I did. She had a habit of aligning herself with power. Grant gave her visibility. Brent gave her protection. Then there was Lena, her roommate, who called me by mistake late one night thinking she was calling Tasha. She was drunk, talking fast, and let slip that Brent was over again. When I asked her to clarify, she backtracked, but it was too late. The puzzle was taking shape. What Tasha had with me was different, genuine, I thought. But looking back, it had an expiration date. She started pulling away right when the model gained traction. I thought it was just stress. Now I knew it was strategy. Meanwhile, I found out Grant was seeing someone too, Mila, my ex. We'd ended things over a year ago, but she still worked in PR. I hadn't spoken to her in months. According to Riley, Mila and Grant had been quietly involved for a while. The timing didn't feel like coincidence. Nothing did anymore. I reached out to Mila under the pretense of a company project. She agreed to meet. We kept it professional, but I watched her carefully. She was guarded, said she and Grant were nothing serious. But she let something slip. Grant had mentioned being in control of the next big thing. Said it in that smug way of his. I asked Devin, our IT guy, to look at access logs and shared drive footprints again. He owed me a favor. What he found was worse than I expected. Grant hadn't just copied my files. He'd rewritten the metadata, forged collaborative timestamps, even removed my name from some early drafts. It was premeditated, but now I had a motive. Tasha had used me. Grant had stolen from me. Brent had backed it all with a smug face and a signature. And Mila? She was either a pawn or a player, but she was connected. So was Riley, and he was the only one who seemed truly neutral. He agreed to quietly pull HR records on Grant's and Tasha's meetings, booking logs, and after-hours keycard data. By now, it was all overlapping: business, pleasure, betrayal. This wasn't just one person screwing me over. It was a network of people sleeping with each other, covering for each other, climbing over each other, all while stepping on me. I'd been a piece on their board, a quiet one, disposable, but they didn't know I'd started playing a new game. I wasn't after retribution anymore. I wanted reconstruction. I wanted the truth on record. I started planning not just how to expose Grant, but how to unravel the whole web, without them even seeing it coming. Because once I was done, no one in that chain would be left standing. I didn't have the luxury of time. If Grant's pitch to the board went through, he'd secure a promotion that would make everything untouchable. I needed to move fast and smart. Devin came through first. He pulled archive versions of the model I'd built. Every save, every edit, proving the entire foundation originated on my personal drive. Grant had taken my final draft, renamed it, scrubbed the metadata, and uploaded it under his credentials. But Devin's system-level logs told a different story. Ones even Grant couldn't manipulate. I set up a backup cloud folder and started uploading the real version. Not just a model, but all iterations, notes, internal memos. I inserted a hidden tag in the formulas, something only I would know to look for, deeply embedded, impossible to fake. That would be my fail-safe. Troy, the junior analyst, had always idolized Grant, but loyalty fades when ambition is ignored. He overheard a conversation in the break room, Grant bragging to Brent about the board's upcoming vote and how the nerd's been neutralized. Troy didn't confront him. He came straight to me. I showed Troy the logs, the model, the truth. His reaction wasn't anger. It was opportunity. If you bring him down, make sure I'm on the right side of the fallout, he said. I agreed. I didn't need allies, but pawns were useful. Meanwhile, I set up an innocuous email from a dummy account to Monica, the company's legal counsel, outlining a potential IP theft case with documented proof, inviting her to look at the timestamps. I knew Monica. She wouldn't ignore it. She'd dig. Rachel, Grant's current girlfriend, was a wild card. Sharp, paranoid, and always 2 steps behind his lies. I fed her a breadcrumb through a fake LinkedIn profile. Anonymous tip, vague enough to trigger doubt, but detailed enough to sound credible. I watched from a distance as she checked his laptop history while he was in the shower. By the next day, her mood had shifted. Cold, suspicious. She wouldn't confront him, but she'd slow him down. The real leverage came from Riley. He pulled HR data that showed Grant and Tasha's key cards accessing the executive wing after hours for weeks. It painted a pattern. Intimate, secretive, unethical. Add to that Brent's meeting logs overlapping those same nights. And it wasn't hard to suggest misconduct. Carla, the accounting lead, finally opened up when I asked if she'd noticed any discrepancies in financial reports after the model implementation. She admitted quietly that some line items didn't match projected values. Grant had modified key numbers to make himself look smarter to the board, massaged outcomes, shifted targets after the fact. She gave me copies. I now had the model's proof of authorship, the affair logs, the financial manipulation, the HR violations and witness statements. But I didn't just want to drop everything in one bomb. I wanted them to collapse from the inside. So I planted bait. I let a fake file appear in the shared folder, an improved version of the model loaded with intentional errors. Grant took it, predictably, and added it to his upcoming pitch. I waited. Every move they made, I anticipated. Every word they spoke, I tracked. Their arrogance was my advantage. They thought I'd sulk in silence. They thought I'd break under betrayal. What they didn't realize is I'd already written the ending. All I had to do now was watch it unfold. The boardroom was full. The stakes were higher than ever. Grant walked in confident, dressed for a coronation. Tasha was by his side again, poised, unreadable. Brent nodded at them both from his seat, clearly in on the plan. They thought this was the moment everything would solidify. His promotion, her elevation, and their control over the company. Grant began his pitch with my model, rebranded, repackaged, and now corrupted with the flawed formulas I'd laced in. He explained projected growth, risk mitigation, cash flow balance. He sounded brilliant, but his numbers didn't add up. A few heads tilted. Confusion crept in. Carla, who had remained quiet for weeks, raised a hand. Why is this column repeating the same value across two scenarios? That's not how it looked last quarter. Grant brushed it off. Must be a formatting error. But that wasn't going to save him. I stood up with the board's permission and presented a sealed envelope addressed to Monica. It contained the real model, original timestamps, version histories, and the embedded tag only I knew to point out. Monica opened her laptop and started checking the evidence live. Her face tightened. Riley stepped forward next with a compiled document of HR policy violations, unauthorized after-hours access, inappropriate executive conduct, and potential abuse of positional power. Every entry had a log, a signature, or a key card match. Tasha's name was on nearly every page. So was Grant's. So was Brent's. Tasha tried to intervene. These accusations are circumstantial. Everyone here works late. That doesn't prove anything. But before she could finish, Monica spoke. We traced the original IP of the financial model to Alex's workstation. The edits match his account, time zone, and login schedule. We have indisputable authorship. This is intellectual property theft. Grant's face turned pale. He looked at Tasha. She looked away. Rachel, uninvited but now standing in the back of the room, held up a printed email, an exchange between Grant and Mila, bragging about how easy it was to push the nerd out and claim the crown. Mila had forwarded it to her after Rachel confronted her. She wasn't staying quiet anymore. Then came the final blow. Lena had sent in a voice recording to HR, a late-night phone call where Tasha, not knowing she was on speaker, had laughed and said, "Alex is smart but too soft. Once Grant gets promoted, we're in. After that, I don't care how it ends." The silence was thick. Grant stammered. Brent demanded a recess. Tasha stood frozen, as if for the first time realizing none of them had loyalty left. One by one, they were dismissed from the room. Internal investigations were ordered. Monica assured me privately that legal action was already underway. HR issued a temporary suspension. The board would vote later, but the outcome was clear. Grant's promotion was dead. His job was on life support. Tasha resigned the next day. Brent recused himself from future decisions, citing personal conflicts. Everything they'd built on deception collapsed in a single hour, and I didn't even have to raise my voice. I just told the truth, at the right time, with the right proof. They called me a genius that day, but I wasn't interested in praise. I was interested in closure. After everything unraveled, the office felt different, quieter. No more tension in the hallways, no more whispers behind doors. Grant's office was empty by the end of the week. His nameplate gone, his digital access revoked. No farewell party, no send-off. Just an email from HR announcing a leadership transition. Everyone knew the truth, but no one said it out loud. That was the price of humiliation. Silent acknowledgement. Tasha vanished too. No goodbye, no message, nothing. Her desk was cleared out before Monday. I heard she tried to reach out to Brent, but with the board's ethics review ongoing, he didn't respond. She had no allies left. Even Lena moved out of their apartment. I got a thank you text from her. You were the only one who saw clearly. Brent quietly stepped down from the committee, citing family obligations. It wasn't a firing, but it might as well have been. He wouldn't return. His name had been stained. The web they'd spun to climb together had collapsed, and all that remained was debris. Monica met with me one-on-one to confirm what I already knew. The evidence was overwhelming. My authorship was confirmed, and the board had not only reinstated my credit, but requested I take over the next phase of implementation. It wasn't a promotion by title, not yet, but I was now in charge of the model, its distribution, and its future development. No one questioned it. Troy was promoted. He played his part and got rewarded. He shook my hand, but there was a flicker in his eye, a reminder that loyalty came with conditions. I didn't trust him. I didn't need to. He was useful, and now he was visible. That made him predictable. Riley got the internal recognition he deserved. HR kept his name off any reports to protect him, but I made sure the CEO knew who held the system together while it nearly cracked. Riley said thanks, then went back to being invisible. That was his choice. Mila never reached out. Rachel sent me a single message. You were right about him. I should have listened. I didn't reply. Some things didn't need closure. They just needed distance. As for me, I worked. I refined a model, added layers, connected it to a new AI-driven platform that could evolve with market conditions. I presented it to the board under my own name this time. They listened. They asked questions. And when I finished, they applauded. Not because I saved the company again, but because I owned the room. I didn't take a victory lap. I didn't gloat. Revenge wasn't about noise. It was about precision. They tried to write me out, erase my work, steal my voice. Instead, they gave me clarity. I saw how fragile power was, how easily it shifted. Tasha, Grant, Brent. They weren't villains in a movie. They were people who mistook deception for strength and used intimacy as a tool. But they underestimated one thing, the person who kept receipts. I learned that silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the sharpest weapon in the room. Now, when people look at the company's turnaround, they see my name, my model, my vision. And every time I walk past Grant's old office, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel calm, because I didn't just survive what they did. I ended it.